Welcome back to another episode of Shades of Blue Soccer Show 1v1 vlog, whatever we're actually calling it. I'll get that worked out one of these days. Mike and I, we don't have any specific news that we're talking about today like we normally try to do, but we decided to do something that we've thought about for a long time and just more of a mailbag, readers, Twitter submit questions, and we will answer them to the best of our ability because if it's a stats question, I'm pretty sure Wikipedia can throw the answers out there. If it's BSing, I'm pretty sure I can take a wing at it. And between us, we can come up with something.
Usually.
Fair enough, Mike?
Yep, sounds good.
All right. I know you were, as being the organized guy that you are, you were going down the list of questions. And we thought the very first one should be probably the thing that's prevailing everywhere in the world right now, COVID.
Yes. One of the questions we got was what is going to happen with the playoffs or MLS Cup if there's a Rapids, or not even that, if there's a Minnesota United level outbreak within a team that forces a team to quarantine, basically. MLS hasn't said anything to my knowledge as to what's going on or what would happen, I guess, in the case of an outbreak within a team. We saw with the USL both of their championships games for the championship and League One were canceled due to breakouts. I would think MLS would have to follow a similar format if there was to be a breakout, not only in MLS Cup but in any sort of playoff matchup. If San Jose, for example, came down with a number of positive cases that is sweeping through the team, I would think it would have to be a forfeit. I don't think would be the right word, because I don't think MLS would want to officially have a forfeit on the record, but the Sporting would advance by default, basically, I think is what would happen.
Yeah, I don't know what you could call it other than forfeit. There's probably some good Weasley word out there they could use. I would swear, because I've been away most of the day, it seems like, I swear I saw somewhere that one of the teams had a positive that's in the playoffs just pop up.
Well, LAFC had one that on a player who's with the Ecuadorian national team, and then Seattle had one late this past week where they had a first team. I can't remember if it was staff or player. They said it, but I can't remember it now off the top of my head.
I think that was a staff member, but I could be wrong. I think that one.
LAFC had a player that's on national team duty who won't even be playing in this game against Seattle report test positive, and then Seattle had a first team staffer apparently test positive. So there are teams that are continuing to do it, and it'll be my guess to get around it instead of forfeit would be that the team would withdraw from the MLS Cup playoffs.
Yeah, and I knew there would be a Weasley word that could be used.
There's your Weasley word. The Weasley word is withdraw. So that would be my guess anyway, as to what they would do to avoid a forfeit.
Right. So that should become a regular segment, the Weasley word of the week.
Well, to continue on with that question that we had gotten, the follow-up to that was, how would the Concacaf spots be drawn out in that case? As of right now, 2 spots have been decided. Philadelphia got the Supporter Shield, so they get 1 spot, and Portland got a spot for winning the MLS's back tournament,
which was the Open Cup one. What was that?
Apparently, I swore I remember them saying it was going to be the opposite conference of the Supporter Shield winner. But then again, that was back when there was still hope that we would have an Open Cup this year. So I think what's ended up happening is that the Open Cup has gone ahead, and with that not taking place, the tournament, the MLS's back tournament, is getting the spot basically.
But officially, nobody really knows at all. So
No, nobody officially knows, but either way, my assumption would be that the third and fourth qualifying spots, if for some reason MLS Cup does not take place, the third and the fourth spot would go to the next best teams in the points per game settings, basically. Number 2 in the league this past year was Toronto, which cannot qualify via MLS methods. They finished with a 1.91 points per game.
Well, it could.
Other than the MLS's back tournament.
Okay,
the MLS's back tournament, they said, could go to the Canadian teams, but otherwise, those spots are supposed to only go to U.S. soccer participants,
right?
Not Canadian,
because they don't really count.
Yes,
but they could end up doing the MLS Cup finalist if it's not Philadelphia or Portland.
They could if it gets that far. Yes, they did drop that spot a couple years ago to make it the conference winner of the opposite conference. Right.
And what it does come down to is it's U.S. soccer that decides that.
Yes.
Not MLS.
Yes.
Not that they're not tied at the hip somehow.
Correct, but either way, however they do decide to do it, well, let me rephrase it, because there are ways they could decide to do it that would not do it. They could just pick, we want to have LAFC and the LA Galaxy go into the tournament, basically. But
they could.
If you're going on-field merit, Sporting would, in theory, have already qualified for the tournament next year, the Champions League next year.
Right.
Because they are third in the points per game single table, number 2 among American teams. So if they keep the opposite conference winner, or if they give it to the next highest points per game, both of those are Kansas City.
Correct. And I agree that that's how it probably will work, probably should work. I just hold out the fear that there will be some form of weaseling that teams that begin with L is picked this year. All right, let's move on because I think we have quite a few things to discuss. What's next on our list, Mike?
Next was a couple questions about Polito's availability for the game against San Jose.
Officially, Peter said as of a couple days ago that he is week to week and almost day to day, something like that. We still don't really know much about it other than what the ESPN Deportes posted, that it was a knee strain, ACL or MCL strain.
MCL.
So Peter basically did not give a lot of information. He don't have to anymore. So
he apparently, now I haven't watched or listened to Extra Time, but apparently he was interviewed on Extra Time, and his quote was, "I think it's going to be difficult. I do. We're trying everything we can, but I think it's going to be difficult," in regarding to Polito's availability for the San Jose series.
Yeah, so, and I would imagine that if we go based off the timing that we heard.
Yeah, which absolutely. At the same time, as I mentioned previously, it's not like Vermes doesn't have a history of using injuries to keep players from national team duty, and then that player end up playing in games. This time he shouldn't technically get fined because the game's not taking place during the international break.
And FIFA said you could keep players out of this one anyway.
Yeah.
Because Werder Bremen's keeping Sargent out. Because anybody has to quarantine more than 5 days, 4 or 5 days, whatever some low number. They said you could turn the call up down anyway.
Yeah.
So again, we've argued about, or we've discussed this before. Espinoza, being the one that everybody always refers back to, was injured, had a sore back. He set out of training. He still played a little bit in the next game,
which was during the international break, or that was actually a Gold Cup. So he did play during the Gold Cup, which got Sporting into a little hot water, which ended up in a fine of under $15,000 for both the club and Espinoza.
And if I remember correctly, they talked to the coach and told him that what was going on, and the coach said, "Oh, okay, no problem." But they didn't submit the official paperwork to the federation and the head of the federation, because there's a lot of infighting between the coach and the federation back then. I don't know about now because I really don't follow Honduran. It's hard enough to follow political things in this country, much less in other countries, and soccer federations thrown into that. So, but there was a little bit of fighting between the coach. I don't know if it was a new coach, there was an old coach, whatever it was. They had, what I was told was they had talked to the coach, but they didn't submit the official form to the federation because they didn't have to in the past when they did it. And that's where they got in trouble.
Yeah. So at this point, unfortunately, we don't know a whole lot more than what anybody else does. I hope he's available. I hope it is a bit of a chess game, because Sporting is a much better team when he's out on the field. Not that they're a bad team when he's not, but they're just much better when he's out on the field.
So one of the questions was, what do we do if Polito doesn't play?
That becomes, I think you had told me the question was the front five, basically. Right. So I think there are a couple obvious ones that are in it. Russell obviously is out there. Kinda, if he is healthy, is out there.
Which he's another one of the unknowns. We suspect he might have been a positive, but we don't want to say that because we don't know those things, and I don't want to be spreading any bad rumors.
Yes. So,
but he showed up on the not medically cleared list without any discussion of injuries.
So Russell and Kinda are absolutes. The way he's played this year, I don't know how you cannot play Busio in one of those top front five positions, whether that's out on the wing again or in the midfield. For me, I would tend to push him out wide to the midfield or out wide on the wing and have Espinoza be in the midfield, because the team just looks so much better when Espinoza is out on the field, which is another thing that we can go into on another time about how we really desperately need an Espinoza replacement long term. So that basically just leaves you with the center forward position of whether you prefer Shelton or Hurtado up top. And I mean, given play, given current form, I don't know how you cannot go with Hurtado in that position, honestly.
Honestly, I wouldn't, though. You're correct in his form of scoring goals, but I don't think he brings as much as Shelton does to the rest of the team. So I don't think he combines as well as Shelton does. I don't think he drops back as well as Shelton does, which is kind of what Polito does. So,
and I think you saying that, I think playing at home also will play a role in that. I think Hurtado is really good at running in behind a defense, getting those balls in behind, which at home you're not going to get as much with teams kind of sitting back a little bit deeper. So in that regard, I think Shelton may be the better option to in terms of combination. But at the same time, I think you have an eye out for an early entrance for Hurtado if need be, to give a little extra scoring punch, basically.
Yeah, because I do think Shelton has been moderately injured for the last couple months, honestly. So I think because like Hurtado came in at the half for the last game, he came in for Jerso, right?
Yeah, and push
And,
Shelton wide.
yeah, and then scored 2 or 3 minutes into the half. So
And to be fair, that game against Salt Lake was not a game that played to Jerso's advantages, in my opinion.
no, and that's the one guy that we've not talked about so far in the who we'd put out there. Um, it's hard to not have Jerso speed out there at some point also.
No, and I think you have to get him out there at some point on the field. Basically, you have to get him out there, either hopefully with a lead and San Jose pushing forward and have Jerso's speed to break in behind, similar to how he scored against the Rapids. Couple weeks, month or so ago. Time is not linear anymore. But that's exactly what happened. Is Jerso was able to use his speed to get in behind a defense that had pushed forward, trying to find something in the game, basically. So I think at this point, that is Jerso's best spot right now, is coming on as a spark off the bench to run at tired legs.
Don't disagree, especially after Shelton and Russell have pounded them for a little while.
Yes.
So let's make sure we're clear. Russell, Shelton, Busio, Kinda, Espinoza, if they are all healthy.
Yes, that is that's my front five if all are healthy right now.
I would not argue with that. Let's
And
move on.
Yep.
Well, go ahead and say what were we going to say.
Well, I was just going to say then you can bring in Jerso for either Busio or Espinoza if you want to. You bring him in for Espinoza, you drop Busio. You bring him in for Busio, it's like for like. Bring in Hurtado for Shelton, or you bring in Hurtado for Busio and you push Shelton out wide. So you have options for how you want to switch it up if and when Burmese wants to switch it up.
All right. What else do we have in that vein?
In that same vein, back to on the field as well, the defense. Has the defense really improved? Is it good enough to win MLS Cup, basically? Matt Doyle had he had posted an article on MLS Soccer about one question for each MLS team, and his was still Sporting's defense.
I don't blame him in this case because I think he often gets a mindset and just sticks with that for 13 months. But I don't really blame him for that question mark because it does go back to the latter portion of 2018 even. I know we discussed it a lot in 2019, but it goes back into 2018. But it's also some different players back there now.
No, it absolutely, and that was, I think, my main problem with the argument that he was making, because he was talking about going all the way back to 2018, and you of the, let's say, back six, of the team, since we already talked about the front five, the back six, only two of those six played any dominant number of minutes for the first team in 2019, let alone 2018.
Yep.
Because that's just Ilie and Melia, and the back four between those two is all new players. I mean, Lindsay played one game for Sporting in 2019,
and half a dozen in 2018.
Yeah, maybe like half a dozen. Yeah, not a whole lot in 2018 either. He was mainly with Swope. It was Swope then. Yeah, Swope at that time.
And most of his time in 2018 was on the left side, wasn't it?
Yes.
So, yeah, but you have, like you said, a totally different back line back there now. Assuming the starters would be Dia or Martins if he's whichever one's healthiest, because Dia apparently picked up a knock at some point also. Reed and Puncic, and then Lindsay by default at this point. So,
to be fair, I think Lindsay's earned the spot on the right side at this point with the way he's played.
if Zeus was healthy, I think that would be a big question mark. And
Well, at the same time, if Zuzi was healthy, Lindsay wouldn't have gotten the opportunities to prove he should have the time there. I think is
correct.
also a way you can look at it. So, my only issue with my only counter argument to whether the defense can win MLS Cup and what has me a little worried going into the playoffs. Sporting's gone 6-3-1, 6 wins, 3 losses, 1 tie in the last 10 games. Of those 10 games, 5 were against playoff teams. They only won 2 of those 5. One against expansion side Nashville on a goal of the year by Hurtado.
Yep.
And the second was the Rapids' first game in a month, where they looked like a team that had not played a game in a month.
But they were rested.
But the other 3 games, 2 losses to Dallas and 1 loss to Orlando. 2 of those losses were at home. No, 1. Both Dallas games were on the road, right? No, 2 at home. Dallas 3-2. They won at home at Kansas City, where Russell had a brace, and then the mistake by Zuzi. So, yeah, there 2 of those 3 were at home. So they were 2-2 at home against playoff teams in their last 10 games.
Okay. The question would be what was the lineup for some of those games? And I know we don't have time to really go into all that right now, so maybe we should convene in a couple days and actually analyze that a little more detailed, because I think that's a really questionable thing, is who was actually on the field for some of those. And yeah, they didn't play great for a few games in the middle of this season, we'll say.
That is fair. My only argument was that while, yes, Sporting's hot right now, the teams that they have played have not been the highest quality teams in the league. They've won they beat they beat a good Nashville team. Nashville's surprising everybody, but I mean,
even in that, they didn't have Mukhtar playing. They didn't have their new DP playing.
Yes. All I'm saying is that there are still plenty of questions about the defense. Do I think we can win MLS Cup with this defense? I absolutely do. The defense has solidified itself, and it seems to be working with the 4 that have played the majority of the last 10 games.
And gaining confidence. And I also, when we look at this a little bit more, I think we also need to look at not only the back 6, but the middle 3, because that plays a big role also in how Sporting can defend. If the middle is weak, the back line just gets ran at and they're going to get eaten up. You know what I mean? So Espinoza being out there for a good chunk of the 90 minutes is important. Having Ilie back and seemingly close to his 2018 self, if not there, not his 2019 self, it is a big thing. Whoever the other person out there in the middle is, be it Kinda or Busio, which I think Busio right now is probably smarter defensively than he's ever been in his life, just because of having played the 6 for a while. So all of that might play a big role, and that plays a big role in how the back line for Sporting does. I mean, I know that's kind of simplistic in that, that's for every team, but Sporting especially, that back line needs the front to slow things down, direct things a little bit, and then they play much better. Fair enough?
Totally. No, absolutely. Fair enough. I will not argue that point at all.
We'll argue it more at another time when we can have all the data specifically for that analysis.
Stretch. Yes.
All right. Next on our list of questions.
Continuing on with Sporting KC a little bit. Have you heard any update recently regarding Felipe Gutierrez and how his return is, and when I guess we could potentially see him returning to the field?
Well, returning won't be till next year, no matter what, because he's on season long, whatever the technical term. He's on the IR for season-ending injury thing.
Season-ending injury. Yeah.
I do think that he has been running, which is a good sign. Not knowing the exact injury that he has, that plays a big role in it too. I mean, there's some people, it takes 2 years to come back from certain injuries. Some guys come back in 6 months. Just depends on the injury. I'm pretty sure that he has been doing running, just from spying him in the back of videos that Sporting releases. So, but I know he's been doing rehab for pretty much since he got the surgery done. So I would anticipate he is ready for spring training next year, whenever that is.
Well,
that's the best update I can give.
They want to start in March, so that would presumably be January then. But I have nothing else to add. Quick one there. Another question was, what is holding PV back from being a finalist for Coach of the Year?
3 things: jealousy, his attitude, and the first 2.
Here, I'll give you a third. Victim of his own success.
Consistency.
Yes. So before we talked tonight, I went and looked it up. Vermes has been finalist for Coach of the Year, which means he's been in the top 3 times: 2011, 2012, and 2018. 2011, I couldn't find the voting aspect, so I couldn't figure out where in the top 3 he fell. 2012, he finished a very, very distant second to Frank Yallop in San Jose that year. And then 2018, he finished 3rd, but behind Tata Martino and Bob Bradley with Atlanta and LAFC respectively. So the 2012 season, if I remember right, that's when San Jose went off and won the Supporters Shield, if I remember correctly.
So.
And then 2011 was the turnaround from last to first in the span of a season, basically. And if I remember right, Caleb Porter won Coach of the Year that year.
Do you know who the other finalist was? Is it usually 3?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay, don't worry about it.
Or was that Bruce Arena that won in 2011? It was Arena that won in 2011. My apologies. Arena won in 2011 for the Galaxy.
Yeah. So we know that when he's been a finalist, at least in 2 of those occasions, it was against teams that were spending way, way, way more money than what Sporting could do.
Yeah.
That seems like that's really the qualifier for coaching at this point, huh?
Yeah. No, it is frustrating in that regard, because it took and by the way, Ziggy Schmidt was the other 2011 finalist. Those were so he was basically, he went 2018, he went against teams that were spending a lot and also trendy, very trendy picks those years basically. And then the other year, 2012, he lost out in a landslide. Everybody lost out in a landslide to Yallop in San Jose, who won the Supporters Shield and scored 72 goals, about 20 more than the next highest team from looking at things, 15 maybe. So San Jose was, I from what I remember of 2012, I don't think you can argue that Yallop probably deserved it that year.
Yeah.
And I'm not arguing for Vermes to have gotten it this year. The award this year two of the finalists this year were clear cut and should be either one of Oscar Pereja or Jim Curtin should win the award this year. I have a feeling those two will be close, and then third, Greg Vanney will be a distant third in that voting. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if Vermes is fourth, and Vermes is closer to Vanney in third than Vanney is to whoever finishes second.
Yeah, except it's already over. We just don't know who it is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's all about the voting's done, but like I said, I won't be surprised if Vermes is closer to third than third is to second.
Yeah, me either. I mean, I could make arguments against both of the top two, but I can understand the arguments for both of the top two. So
yeah, I mean, again, a lot of it goes back to trendy talk, basically, and Brendan Aronson and Philadelphia's youth movement has been a big talking point in national media all year, as has Oscar Pereja in turning Orlando City from afterthoughts to playoff contenders, basically, in the course of 1 year.
No doubt.
So, I mean, I can't say why Vermes wasn't up for it this year. I don't think Toronto did anything more special this year than what Vermes did. In fact, I mean, we've argued now that Vermes has done more than what Vanney did, but Vanney got the you can make your arguments about big markets. Toronto, obviously a much bigger market than Kansas City. But yeah, I was disappointed that Vermes was not a finalist because, again, I didn't think he would win it, but I thought he had the job he did this year to turn things around. You can't just put on, the players underachieved last year. Right. That can't be the only thing that was the reason for the turnaround.
There's a lot of reasons, which we went into with some of our previous discussions, so we don't want to get into all of them right now. But yes, but he still did a good job, whether it's bringing in new players, be it making the moves that he needed to make, which may be unpopular moves, not playing certain players and things like that. But he did it, and he deserves a better than not even in the top three for what he did. But
I hope it doesn't become a running joke, because I hope he does win it, but at some point it's going to become like Nick Rimando and the goalkeeper of the year.
Yeah.
Which is why I brought up the third point when you said 3 points why he wasn't getting it, and the third point being his consistency, basically. Rimando was never won goalkeeper of the year, but was consistently one of the top goalkeepers. So expectations were always way high with him that he had to be above that level to even be considered. And I think Vermes' track record in Kansas City, he is a victim of his own success in a way.
Yeah, if Rimando had a couple of bad years and then became one of the top three again, he'd be in consideration. But that's not the way it worked. He was always good.
So
he was one of the few keepers in the league that I would happily accepted into Sporting. Just I like the guy.
Yeah.
And one thing that does bother me about some of that is in another 20 years when they're putting out the best 25 or best 40 of MLS history, and they use how many awards were won by somebody as criteria to narrow the list down to 200 potential people. You know what I mean? Winning those awards.
We don't even have to go into the future. I already made the argument about my annoyance with the fact that Jimmy Nielsen isn't on the list of the for the top 25. I don't necessarily think he should be there, but the fact that he's not there and someone like Troy Perkins is there, or Juninho is there, and you have the only goalkeeper in MLS history who has played over 100 games with the goals against average under 1, and he doesn't get on at least the nomination list, I think there's a problem in that.
And I don't have it up in front of me, but I know I had went through and because we had to pick 6 keepers, I think, for the list of
Three
25.
goalkeepers.
Was it
Three
three?
goalkeepers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, 6 defenders, I think
Six
was what it was.
defenders. Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I know I went through and picked two, and then I had to go back and find a third one that I was willing to accept,
Yeah.
not because I wanted them.
No, that's basically where I was as well. I picked two, and then I tried to submit with my 25 and was told, nope, you haven't met the qualifications. I went up red. I'm like, I need 3 goalkeepers.
Who was your
So I
three?
had to Miola, Ramondo, and I went with Hartman as the third.
I went with Biolo, Ramondo, and Jorge Campos.
Sure. Sure.
It's my opinion. I'm sticking with it.
Moving on to
the only Mexican national team player I ever loved before Polito.
Moving on to the next question. You want to talk sporting legends, Juan Cusain, or the Academy?
Oh, let's go with legends. We're already in an antagonistic mood.
Since we've already talked about at least one sporting legend and preferably one future sporting legend, the question was related to the criteria, who's in waiting and eligible for selection, and if and when Neil and Cliff will be honored as sporting legends. So, criteria. There's never been an announced criteria for being a sporting legend.
I think it is people who they think they can get to show up at a game. How about that?
And have had some semblance of success in Kansas City. Some decent success in Kansas City.
So, really, there's not a lot of argument with the ones that are up there.
No.
I personally didn't like Wolf.
Yeah, Wolf is the only – well, there are two. Wolf, and I will argue that Vermes, if you're putting Vermes up there, you cannot put him up there. And you could not put him up there until he was gone as a coach. Because if he's up there as still a coach, to me, it strikes it as you're looking at his playing career. And for me, his playing career, while good, was not
that exceptional.
Was not legend worthy for Sporting. So
especially when you only have a few names up there.
Yes, you combine his playing and coaching career here. He absolutely 100% should be on the wall. But with when it was done, I was not a fan of it. So
that kind of like a little bit of going back to the MLS best 25 thing. I also looked at some of it as I didn't want to pick players who had only played in the league for 2 years, for example. They may have been outstanding. So Zlatan, Blanco, things like that. But I went, they're just here for 2 years. That doesn't make them, to me, MLS great. They were great for a year or 2 or 3. I went for guys who had more like 5 to 8 years as a requirement in my own personal choosing.
Yeah. So, and in that point, Vermes was here 3 years as a player, 2000, 2001, 2002. So again,
great 2000.
Great 2000, good 2001, 2002, legs and long career caught up with him a little bit, but
yeah,
he should be up there. I just felt the timing of when was not the best option. But
I'm not disagreeing.
Enough of that. Moving on to the who do you think is in waiting for selection of? Let's start with retired players first.
Well, we go back to Jimmy. We mentioned him because everything he did for this club, being a great captain, Open Cup, MLS Cup, helping open a stadium. Just
I would halfway argue, because he's in Kansas City now, that if things hadn't been shut down, he arguably would have gone in this year. If they'd have had the ability to do it this year, I think he would have been a prime candidate to have gone in this year.
Possibly. I know you listed on your notes like 3 or 4 other players.
I have 5 retired players that should be in waiting to be on the wall. Nielsen's one of them. Nick Garcia, Davey Arno. Actually, I take that back. I had 4. My bad. 4. And then Benny Feilhaber. Those four should absolutely be on the wall at some point, in my opinion.
Is there anybody who else that, I mean, like, I'm just trying to think. I, I would pretty much go with that also. I don't know.
You can make I could, in my opinion, they're not there, but would hear arguments for players like Chance Myers and Jack Jewsbury, but I don't think either one of them should be going in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't
They
either.
were good, but not legend status. The other four I named are all legends for the club in one way or another.
Nick, because of just how hard he played and importance to the club when he was here.
Mm-hmm.
Davey for how hard he played.
Both of those players signified what was the Wizards in the aughts in 2000 through 2010. Kansas City was not a glamorous team. It was a very hard-working blue-collar team, and those two players typified Sporting in that regard.
Yeah,
Arno as a fifth-round pick, and Garcia just because of the way he played.
That Midwestern work ethic, also the willingness to do whatever needed to be done on the field in order to send a message if need be.
Exactly.
So I could agree with both of them being competition there.
Now,
Benny.
Go ahead. Benny, I think you over 150 games played for the club in league play, close to 200 in all competitions, third all-time in assists, MVP finalist. I don't see how you can leave him out of the equation, in my opinion.
And so many big games that he was key to winning.
Yes.
Scoring, assisting,
or just taking games over. The loss to Seattle in the playoffs, where he was miles the best player on the field for either team.
Yeah, the only problem is he needed to bring the rest of us up a little bit. Yeah,
exactly. So those four, absolutely. So
and those are the retired players.
Those are the retired players. Now, active players, I have 5 on my list.
Okay, you want to list them?
Sure. I'll go with there are 4 currently with the club: Beasler, Zuzi, Espinoza, and Melia. And then I think, in my opinion, you have to include Sinovic. I think Sinovic, over his time here and his continual knockdown, comeback, I think Sinovic is a sporting legend for this club. I think you have to include him. Those are my 5 active players that should be up on the wall.
I won't disagree with those. I think if I was going to drop one off, it would have to be Seth. I hate to say that.
No, that is of the 5, yes.
I said this, I think, once in one of the podcasts earlier this year when Beasler was not playing well, and I was like, yeah, we need to be starting somebody else in his place. I said, but they need to have the stencil ready to put up on the Legends wall right now. It just needs to be done right now. And because no matter what happens, no matter how much he plays in the rest of his career, him and Zusi have to go up there. They need to have those stencils made right now, just to say, here, we owe you that.
Well, Beasler will become the first. Well, will go down as the first. I don't want to say the word great, but the first great Kansas City-based professional player.
Yeah.
In the club's history, in the league's history, you cannot name a better player from Kansas City than Matt Beasler.
No,
he absolutely is. And I know with everything, I'm going to be disappointed that he likely will not end his career here. I'm disappointed that he likely won't end up a one club player.
I hope that he does, though.
I hope he does. I honestly hope both him and Zuzi do. At this point, I think it's looking much more likely that Zuzi will than Beasler will. But
Zusi's still under contract for longer.
for
But
next year, yes,
right.
Beasler's out of contract at the end of the year. So
I remember actually when they signed all those him, Espinoza, Zusi, and
Espinoza,
Beasler and Ilya all in that
yep.
one little signing ceremony thing. And I remember thinking that, man, Beasler, center back usually has a longer career than an outside back, and especially with things that Zusi's already done. Well, I would have been wrong in that case.
Yeah. So no, though I could definitely hear an argument against Seth, but in order, I think obviously you said it. Beasler and Zuzi, they should already be making the wording, making the letters to put their names up.
Yep.
I would argue Espinoza, absolutely, you should already be making the letters for him as well. In that regard, Melia has, Melia has, besides the longevity of owning every goalkeeping record of a at a club that has had one other legend and one should be legend up on the wall. I think Melia should be the third one to eventually end up there.
I think that's another future one for us, is just discussing goalkeepers throughout the history of Wizards Sporting. But
like, I'd have to go back and look at the other MLS teams, but I'd be hard pressed to find another MLS team that you could argue has three goalkeepers at that level that you could argue for the best in the club's history.
And then throw in the one that you did vote for in the top 25, who
was here who was very good in his time, but was not on a very good Wizards team when he was here.
And he was maybe not at his best either when he was here, but he was still very, very, very good.
Yes.
And deserving of
he was still a starting quality MLS goalkeeper.
So of the probably the five keepers who had a lot of time with Sporting Wizards, four of them are very arguably at that level. So I think we're good with that.
Yes.
So all of them should be, no argument. Next question.
Trying
to keep us moving.
Yes. Juan Kuzain. Any thoughts on what's next for him at this point?
Okay. This is like those things I hate talking about sometimes, because I like the kid. I like the guy. I think he has some potential that is not going to be found right now with Sporting, unfortunately. He has passing ability. He has a smart positioning. He has a nice shot for, free kicks, from, things like that. He has all that ability. He is so thin and so needing to bulk up a little bit. But, and I don't know if he can. I mean, just, his body may not, it's not that every guy that plays soccer needs to be muscle bound by any means. But I think if he was a little bit stronger, a little bit faster, but the problem is he's competing against guys who are as good as him or better. If they're as good as him, they're younger, or they're better than him right now. And with how Sporting 2 is turning out players, if you don't make your mark and keep it, you may not have a third chance.
Yeah.
So I hope he goes to a USL team and just kicks ass.
I think, I don't want to say he's hurt by this, because hurt's not the right word, but he's one that St. Louis FC going away is a
disadvantage.
Yes, because being from Carbondale, that's not too far away from St. Louis, basically. So I think he's one that he's one that would be a good fit for a USL team, an independent USL team. Going back a little bit, he does technically still have an option year left on his deal, but I think we're both of the opinion that he likely is not going to be back next year at this point.
Because I think that they can sign additional academy kids that can fill his role.
I think his supplemental roster, I think that's where he's at. Supplemental roster spot, I think you could sign Davis from SKC2,
Yes.
and he could fill the same role basically.
You knew
That
exactly who I
that
was going to say, didn't
yeah,
you?
yes, I did. So yeah, I think uh, as much as I like him and as much as I wish he could have done more here, I think his time in Kansas City is just about done.
Yeah, and I hate to see that, and I hate to have it
Hate,
happen, but
yeah, hate to see it end this sort of way, basically.
and again, I hope he goes somewhere in USL, OKC maybe. Pascarella knows him. Maybe that's a good spot to go. But that's we can we can pick that stuff, but we don't get to make those choices.
Yeah.
I hope I'm wrong, and I hope he just kicks ass. But that's where our opinion is right now. So
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah. So I will love to have it thrown in my face when he crops up with another MLS team.
Yes, and hopefully he does.
Yes.
Next question.
Next question. Speaking of the academy, had wanted some people wanted some insight on the academy kids that were in the Audi videos that the really good Audi videos that have been. If you haven't watched them, I would suggest that you watch them because they are really well done and they do give some good insight into the academy process.
I don't remember all the academy kids they showed in there, but I remember 3 for sure. One was Natty Clark, one was Gage Akulu, and one was Ozzy Cisneros. And if I mispronounce any names, I greatly apologize. And if I miss any players that were listed in there, I apologize. But I think those are 3 of the ones that they talked to. I know Natty Clark was because he's the kid that was adopted and went back to Africa and met his family and stuff like that. And he's just a great story. I've seen him ranked in the top 10 like academy kids in the country when all the other kids in in that list was like U17s and he was a U15.
And Clark and Cicerino were those 2 are regularly called into the youth national team. If I
Cisneros.
remember, Cisneros.
Yeah.
Both of them are regularly called into the youth
Yes.
national team.
And I think Akulu has been also.
Yes.
And some of the other guys. No, I don't want to leave. There's other ones that have been called in as well.
But those 3 have been featured prominently in the videos when they've been talking to players. Clark especially. Clark, I think, has been in every single one.
Yeah, and there's a reason for it. He's really rated highly by a ton of people.
If you notice, Sporting tends to has the linear movement of academy, SKC2 first team. There are very few talents that are going to go academy first team.
He's one of them that probably can.
Yes, Clark. That was just where I was getting to. Is Clark is arguably the next one that will make the
direct jump.
Will skip signing a SKC2 Pro contract and just jump. He may not play for SKC to start. He may still loan out, but he's one that will skip. I think will skip that transitional phase to SKC2.
One of the rating sites, and again, I'm giving other people's opinion here, that they said that the way Clark moved on the ball, the way he, the way he possessed, the way he passed, the way he did all the things with the control of the ball, they had only seen 2 academy guys or youth players that had the same ability. One of them was named Christian Pulisic, and one of them was named Gio Reyna. And
good
Natty
company.
Clark is a defender.
That is good company. So
but we also have to remember that when you're looking at a 15-year-old kid, they may have the best potential in the world, but they never take that next step. You just never know. It's no matter how good of a judge of talent you are, it's still always a crapshoot doing that. So I don't want to build up him too high. The couple times I've seen him play in person, he was very good. There was no doubt about it. He was very good. I didn't realize who he was by name until I went back and compared photos to his name and stuff, but he was very good. There was several other academy kids that are. I think that you're going to see SKC2 stocked with academy kids soon. But the only problem is some of those kids can go to college and they might go to SKC2 and never develop to a first teamer and make the money. So it's, there's a kid that I talked about before, Tucker Lepley. He's tiny, but was so good. I saw him practicing with Sporting last year, and it's like, he was very small, and it looks like, like a kid out there, but he was not intimidated. He was passing, he was doing stuff. Saw him play with SKC2 Sewell Park last year. He was good, but he went to college. I don't think he's probably one that, unless they were willing to sign a big money first team contract, he's going to a good college and get an education.
He's at UCLA, if I remember right.
I think that's right. Yes.
So, I mean, getting a pro contract is a great thing, but at the same time, it's really hard to turn down UCLA when they're giving you money to come play soccer there.
Right.
It's a very hard situation to want to turn down a good education to play for a USL team.
When, another 10 years that might change, but that perception, because it's still very ingrained in American sports. You go to college, you get an education, you maybe come out early, but you have at least half your education paid for, that sort of thing. Soccer is not to where it's at in the rest of the world to work your way up the chain. But you're going to make a lot of good arguments out there that they don't want that to change, because you want kids to get education. The more teams that are out here, the more, USL championship teams, the more MLS teams, the more you'll see these kids rising to the top that are good anyway. But it's a hard thing. So anyway, of the ones that were in that video, I think that was the ones that was seen a lot in this last one.
Yeah. So 2 more questions. This first one we'll move through fairly quickly, because I think the second one is one that you'll talk a little bit more about. The couple people asking about U.S. national team forward Nico. Gonna try this. I've been listening to the pronunciation about 60 times. Joaquini.
I think that's pretty good. I think that's how I heard it.
I tried. Like I said, I listened to it way more than I should have. But born in Kansas City, got his first cap against Wales. Just some people wanting a little bit of further information about what the KC connection is, basically. What we'll do is I've sent Thad a link to an America Soccer Now article that has a little bit of the breakdown of it that he'll hopefully include in some descriptions and stuff on it. But basically, he was born in Kansas City, moved to Italy at the age of 8, moved back to Bethesda, Maryland at the age of 12, and moved to France in 2015. So he was in Kansas City for 8 years. He apparently went to some Sporting games or KC Wizards games when he was here, or at least one, according to the article, but was more interested in European soccer. So very slim connections, but connection nonetheless to Kansas City.
I'm sure if he ever comes to MLS, we'll claim the homegrown player rights on him.
I don't think we technically can, because he already signed because he signed a pro contract before a claim was made. Because like I think I said it before, we have Sargent's because we claimed him before he signed the pro contract.
Yes, this is true. I would not be surprised if Vermees hadn't somehow sniffed it out and put a claim in on him. I'm not claiming that. No, that kid's good though. Hopefully he does well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing more of him.
We're going to claim him as a Kansas City native, even if he doesn't ever step foot back in either of the states.
Yes, him and Sagir Arce, who was born here and now plays with Montezuma in Mexico.
That's right.
So that's another one born in Kansas City, but I don't think was here very long. So
yeah, well, I'm sure there's a few
Anyway,
more too. We just don't know them.
oh, I'm sure there are, but those are the ones that I know of off the top of my head, and I include my updates. So, uh, last question. I'll let you run with this one more. Is the imagine the NWSL in Kansas City or back in Kansas City? I know you put out the poll on Saturday asking, is it time for the NWSL to return to Kansas City? And it was a very overwhelming yes.
Last I checked, it was 84% saying yes, about 3 or 4% saying maybe in a few years, and then like 10% saying no. But I mean, heck, when you throw anything out into the Twitterverse, if it's that positive, I think you're doing well. Especially, I actually got a retweet by Brittany Matthews, which is Patrick Mahomes' fiance,
Yeah.
and then Patrick retweeted her retweet. So I think that probably boosted my response by 4,300 of my 4,600.
He just has a few more followers than you do.
I was kind of like, I saw like the numbers jumping up. And I'm like, what the heck's going on here? And I was like, okay, 10, 20, 30, 50, 200, 400, 600. I'm like, what's going on? I saw a few retweets. I'm like, I thought it was just people from the Blue Crew, the former FCKC supporters group. And then I went, oh, yeah, they don't have that many followers, 100, 200, 150, 176,000. What? So, and then 1.2 million. So, yeah.
So, anyway.
The reason I asked that question,
yeah,
let's go with that, is expansion draft happened for Racing Louisville, the new NWSL team that will be going in Louisville, which is associated with the USL Championship team there. There's also a team going in LA next year called Angel City FC, I think, and potentially Sacramento also. So there could be another couple. But during the Louisville expansion draft, they took two women who are from Kansas City and a third one that was from Wichita and played at KU. So there was 3 ties there. And I'm like, well, so I just want to throw it out there. Is that a good, there's, I know you do your update. There's probably 8, 10 Kansas City women playing in NWSL right now, somewhere in that vicinity.
I don't think it's 8 to 10. There's Sinclair Miramontes, because Sydney retired. Shea Groom, Cece Kaiser, who was selected. Haley Hansen, who plays in Houston. Megan Kelly, who plays in Houston. And then I'm blanking. Merrick, who was the number 1 selection. So 6 that I can think of off the top of my head.
Did you say Bailey? Dorian Bailey?
Oh, no, Bailey. 7. There we go.
7. And then the one that played at KU that was from Wichita.
Yep, that's 8. So she's not on my list because I don't count KU, because if I count KU, I got to count MU.
I understand. And then Adria Franch is also
she's from Salina, but right. Yeah, she's
from the region.
You're stretching further than I do. So anyway.
And we also had a keeper who I think I think there was another keeper out there. But anyway, long story, but there's obviously talent in Kansas City to supply players. There's a soccer base that's here. Can there be an expansion team here? Yes, I think there can be another team come here sometime in the near future. And if you look at NWSL right now, they're the only league in the world that I see that's expanding during a pandemic. They have added a team. They're adding in at least 1 to 2 more next year while a pandemic is going on. Their new commissioner, Lisa Baird, has a history with marketing and sponsorships, and they went from 1 major sponsor to like 6 major sponsors, like in a very short time span. TV rights with CBS, all of that added up to plus they were the first league to come back in the pandemic. Not that most media actually realizes that, but they were the first league to come back during a pandemic, and 8 out of their 9 teams played. So
I guess the one question would be playing location, because if they're not owned by Sporting KC, if they're not under that umbrella, would playing at Children's Mercy Park be cost prohibitive to them? I guess would be
Most
a good
likely.
way of putting it.
Most likely.
In that case, where do you play? Do you go to a high school stadium and restrict yourself to playing on a football field with football lines? Do you go to UMKC, where FCKC was towards the end of their time in Kansas City, which doesn't look very good? Either doesn't look like a professional environment. It's a great college venue, but it's not exactly an environment that screams professional athletics.
Well, they were there for a year and then went down to Swope Park.
And then there's Swope Park, and we know the problems that has with U.S. Soccer's Division II requirements,
which is the same for women's soccer Division I. At least last time I saw, minimum of 5,000 seats, the same parking, concessions, fan amenities, TV hookups, etc. Beautiful field down there,
yeah. So
but
in
it
that
doesn't
regard,
have all that.
yeah. So in that regard, you're almost limited solely to Children's Mercy Park in terms of ability, I guess.
There are options, I think. So let's put it that way. I think let's not that it could happen, right? But just say a team showed up today, start play next year. You're going to have very limited attendance, at least for part of next year, most likely. I mean, I think a lot of places, even if there's vaccines and everything's going well, they're still going to limit the amount of attendance. So you probably have at least that going for you in a short run. You know what I mean? So they are, I think, a couple places that are potentially building fields that would, the one at View High in 470, for example, they might have the capability to do what they were looking for, but they would have at least a little time for wiggle room to do something. And that's if they showed up for next year. If you started an expansion team today, for example, and we're going to show up 2 years from now, you'd have a little more time to throw together a good plan for that. Might take somebody with a little cash, though.
Yeah, they're just it's an argument that, I mean, honestly, we had with regards to Swope Park, Sporting KC 2, is location to play.
Yep.
Where you're going to be able to draw people, but also meet the requirements necessary for Division II status, or in this case, women's soccer status.
Right. And I will say that I know that there's been people pushing for bringing a team back. Because there's the question, the biggest question will be long-term fans, but if I think if it's in a good venue and it's managed right, it will do fine. It may not pull Portland Thorns size fans, but you don't have to.
Well, but I mean, I'll go back to this point. In FC Casey's first year at that was at Shawnee Mission North High School.
Yes,
they were the second. They had the second highest average attendance in the NWSL, behind Portland that year. So there is a environment here that
right.
would support a women's team. It's been shown, if it's done right, marketed right, and marketed professionally.
One issue with I don't want to say it this way, but I'm going to, with NWSL for teams, is that a lot of the women's fan base is based on the women's national team. There's just not enough history with teams. Now that's changing because you have people who are loyal to the Thorns and the Reign, teams like that. But that there isn't that history in Kansas City yet. So they're still coming out to see the famous players play. And a lot of those big names, former national team players, aren't playing very much right now because a lot of them didn't play during the pandemic, and their focus is still always going to be national team. So that's always going to be an issue. One nice thing, if you had a team here, you'd probably have players like jockeying to come here because they would be in front of Vlaco more. The U.S. women's national team coach lives here, so he'd probably be at most every game.
Yep. No, I mean, I like the idea. I I know I kind of fell off with my attendance at FCKC when they moved to honestly when they moved to UMKC and then to Swope. I just life for me just got in the way. So it was unfortunately something that I couldn't devote time to, but I was disappointed to see them leave. I would love to see them back, and I would absolutely make an effort to get out more than I did should the women return.
And that's I think we'll have to, I'm always in the position where I'm trying to be objective and balanced and stuff, but I would be an advocate for things like that because I want them to succeed. And I will also say that the two owners that FCKC had, the first set of owners had their issues, but they did at least do their best to put out a winning product. The last owner was the terrible. Just I don't want to like get sued for something, but
Libel.
Yeah, because even though everything I could say would be true, I necessarily could not prove everything in a court of law. But I don't want to say.
We'll just say that he was not well liked.
Nor the general manager that he put in place.
Well, I mean, let's put it this way with what we know is something as a fact. The club got in trouble for not having enough rostered players.
Yes.
So much so that they had to go out and sign somebody to fill a roster spot because they were violating the league rules by not having enough players.
Yes. Amy Rodriguez got hurt in the first game, and they went through half the season with not enough, minimum of 18 roster players, because Amy was obviously out for the year at that point, blew a knee. So I think it might have been an article that somebody in Kansas City wrote that got to the attention of NWSL that then made them go, hey, go sign a player, who then that player turned out to be pretty decent and played for a couple of years.
That was Miramontes, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The older Miramontes, Sydney Miramontes. Yep. Yes.
But so anyway, another good aspect of NWSL and how they're doing right now, and which is the reason that should be looking at this, is salaries have went up. They're still not MLS level, but they are way better than they were the first couple of years. With sponsorship, that money comes in, and you can pay players better, and you can treat them better. So it's time in the next couple of years to get a team back. If I would love for Sporting to be involved in it, but if they're not, that's going to be their loss.
Well, and I feel like that was an argument as well that was made when FCKC started, because there were rumors that Kansas City was getting a team, and everybody was assuming it was Kansas City or that it was Sporting, and then it turned out it wasn't. And that was a weird situation at the start. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I'd love to see the women return, a women's team return.
And also, a lot of people blame them for FCKC leaving. They could have saved them.
Yes.
And go
ahead.
But there was a lot of issues. If they'd have taken over that team, they would have been then responsible for millions of dollars of debt that wasn't paid, and potentially other legal issues that could have arisen from things that had happened. Whether I don't think ever came from that, but that potential was out there. And that stain, they didn't want to go pick up a team that would cost them millions, would not make a profit for quite a long time, and added potential controversy to the team. I can understand why they didn't do that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely, and have maintained that I completely understand why Sporting did not save FCKC at the time. It was a poisoned well, honestly, is the best way of putting it.
So if a team does come back to Kansas City in the near future, Could they name it FC Kansas City again? And then justify having the 2 stars over their crest.
I'd have to think about that one more. I'm not sure I'm ready to say yes or no to that question.
But so anyway, to sum up this part of the conversation, is it definitely the little Twitter poll I put out there? I'm not really a Twitter poll kind of person, but I just threw it out there on a whim, and it got a lot of good response. And there seems to be a little bit of excitement out there as the thought of it happening. So, any other questions, Mike?
No.
Did we actually get through them all?
I think we got through all of them, at least all the ones that I remember seeing.
We've been talking longer than we were supposed to.
Yes, we did. But, we answered everybody's questions that they had. So I feel we can feel good about that.
If we missed any, we apologize.
Yes.
If we missed any, it was not intentional.
Yes.
We don't have you blocked or whatever. Although you might have me blocked, I don't know. But we will do this again sometime in the future.
Sometime in the future. We may leave it as an off-season thing or another break type thing. Whenever we're bored and there's not enough news to talk about otherwise, sort of thing.
Well, that's the thing. And I think we actually had a couple topics tonight to go back and just like really hard discuss, and potentially in the next few days before the first playoff game. Yep. Let's see, we had how the defense actually played.
Yep. The defensive aspect. There was the sporting legends aspect.
Well, I think that's a future one, yeah. But the one for a couple days.
Yeah. There's the
look at all the goalies.
Yep, all the goalies. So there's a lot to come back to. So we can definitely make more of this in the future.
Some of that is off-season stuff, but as you and I both know, the off-season stuff goes fast.
Yes.
You always think, I got 2 months, and then all of a sudden there's a signing, and then there's the player's gone, and expansion drafts. And
anybody that ever starts new wanting to cover MLS as a blog is always like, oh, the off-season's slow. I'm like, no, it's not. The off-season is never slow. There are always rumors and news and contracts and drafts and everything else under the sun.
In fairness, it will be slower than the every 3 days that we've played the last month and a half.
Yes, it will be. And in fairness, it may be slower than normal this year because of the world conditions, but it'll still be busy, I'm sure. So
we need to start an outlet in like Italy or something, and then we can start rumors there, and then we can report on them here.
Go for it.
Also, speaking and just a throwing thing, kind of touching a lot of the things we just talked about, but Sporting just held a combine down at Swope Park.
Yes.
And there was I don't know the total number of players, but I'll just say around 60 college players that were there. 3 of them were former Sporting Academy players. Patrick Wilkinson. Wilkins. I always say his name wrong.
Wilkinson.
Yeah.
Leroy Inzaguzzi.
Yes.
I'm sure I'm butchering that name too. And then Chase
Bromstead.
Yes, were the 3.
If I'm saying it wrong, I apologize.
Yes. So this is not part of what we looked up, so I did not look up how to pronounce your name. So my apologies. But yes, those 3 were involved in the combine this weekend out at Swope.
And I saw one of the games. I was trying to get to a couple of them, but I really only saw one. And Leroy was playing well for a good chunk of it, got hurt, went out, and then Wilkinson came in the second half as right back and played well. But that was the Saturday game. So they played Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And so there was already some dead legs there. But there was a 6'6" defender out there, man. He was big. All right. Anything else?
I think that's it for tonight.
All right. Hopefully we will get this posted soon. I don't think I will actually do very much editing to it other than, some titles. Yeah, I guess that. All right. But anyway, it was fun. Thanks for listening, guys. And any last words, Mike?
Nope.